My name isn't Joe Canales. Joe was originally scheduled to speak this morning, but hopefully we'll get to hear him a little bit later. In February, my wife Sandy and I had the opportunity to go to Southeast Asia, and I taught in our school in Singapore for 2 weeks, and then we went to Cambodia where I also taught 2 weeks. I want to give you a flavor of Southeast Asia. Perhaps that's an area of the world that you haven't really thought about, but it's an exciting part of the world. In fact, if you count China and India, it's the most populous part of the world. It's a land of contrast, extreme poverty and extreme wealth. It's sad because there are so many idols throughout Asia. Traffic, indescribable. We have a number of schools in Southeast Asia. A little bit off the map, up north is in Seoul, Korea. We have a school. We also have a school in Singapore, in Cambodia, in Indonesia, and I think we have 4 campuses in the Philippines, and others are planned in the future. But the predominant religion is Buddhism, but there's a great concentration of Muslims in Indonesia, down in this area, very populous country of many islands. They actually are the largest Muslim nation in the world, but they're not radical Muslims like we find in the Mideast. Of course, India has the predominantly Hindu religion, but one thing in common in all of these countries is idolatry. It is everywhere, and we know how God feels about idolatry. And so it's really sad to see the influence of so many lifeless idols that cannot see, hear, or speak. Singapore, very interesting city. 5.6 million people. That Ferris wheel, I understand, revolves about once every 45 minutes. Singapore has been rated the most expensive city in the world to live for the past 2 years. Unemployment is almost zero in Singapore. They received their freedom from England back 50 years ago in 1965, and they have grown from a third world nation to a first world nation with a standard of living higher than ours. And so it's an amazing place. We have a school in the Pasir Panjang Church building. There are 7 congregations in Singapore. This, we call it the PP congregation for short. It has 5 elders, membership about 350 members, and we have a very international school located in that building. They do mission work all over Asia. They go into China, into Malaysia, the Philippines, Cambodia, and other places as well. They're very mission-minded. Great congregation. I want to tell you about these 2 couples. The man up here is Winston Chong. He's one of the elders at the PP congregation, a great leader. This is his wife, Hung Ni, and a very vivacious lady. And we have joint friends in Japan with them, Kazu and Keiko Hirashima. And we've known Keiko and Kazu for probably 15, 20 years. In our trips to Japan, we've stayed in their apartment many times. I studied with Keiko a number of times. She is now a Christian. Kazoo has not yet obeyed the gospel, but they're mutual friends with the Kongs, and they invited them to come while we were there, and they came all the way from Japan and spent 5 years in Singapore. So it was great to be able to be with them. Because of the British influence in Singapore, you see a lot of interesting signs. Mind the railings when reversing. That's a sign in one of the parking garages. But you see a lot of British influence. They speak English there. It's British English. And a lot of interesting things. In the parking garages, they have lights that if you see a blue light when you're driving down an aisle, you know that's a parking place that's open. And if you see red lights, that means they're all filled. So they're really advanced in a lot of ways. It's pretty amazing, some of the things that you see. There are 2 large domes in Singapore. One has plants from all over the world. It's just an astounding place. And this particular one is one that has plants like you'd find in a jungle setting with a lot of jungle-like plants. That waterfall is several stories high, and you can actually go in an elevator and look down from up above the waterfall. This is the class that I had the privilege of teaching, 2 Corinthians. The man on the right is our dean of that school, and I'm drawing a blank. Brandy Kendall has been there, I think, about 5 years. And these 2 ladies are both from the same village in Vietnam. These are all English-speaking students, and so I was able to teach in English. Their English was the lowest of the group. This man is from Singapore, and there was a young lady also from Singapore not pictured the day we took that picture. These fellows are brothers, all from Philippines, and this man is also from Philippines. And this guy is from Malaysia, the country just north of Singapore. Now, Singapore is an island, a city, and a nation, all in one. And the island is growing. The church building used to be near the beach. Now it's about a half a mile away, because they are bringing sand from Indonesia and dumping it and enlarging the island. So they've thought of just about everything. But this was a great class. Really enjoyed being with them. This is a senior aimer. She audited the class. She's originally from China, and a wonderful lady, really wanting to serve the Lord. As probably some of you know, my hobby is collecting old cars, and there's a complex in Singapore that was developed by a company called the Tiger Salve, and they make a product similar to Bengay, and they've been there for many, many years, many decades. And they have this complex that is somewhat it's designed to show Chinese mythology, and it's several acres. And this 25 Buick was in that complex. I've never seen one quite like that. This is one of the scenes that you see inside one of the buildings there. It's a depiction of what the Chinese, how they picture hell and they're showing somebody being tortured. They had several different scenes of hell. And I'm told that parents who have unruly children bring them here to scare the wits out of them and hope that they'll shape up. Probably gives them nightmares, but I'm not sure that helps. After our 2-week stay in Singapore, we flew to Vietnam. We had a long layover. And Vietnam is also a third world country. Communist government, about 93 million people, and we flew to the capital city of Ho Chi Minh. That's the former Saigon. The church is really struggling in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government has a law that requires that will only allow in the city of Ho Chi Minh one church building for every church. For example, the Baptist church has one building. That's all the government will allow. I suppose it's so they can keep an eye on them. But there are several house churches in the capital city, and they most of them are very small, but one of them is operated by a familiar face that some of you may know, Stefan Fomazon. Stefan is Laotian. He came as a student here from Paris, France. He went through the school, graduated in 2001, now married to a Vietnamese lady. And the girl in the yellow was dropped on their doorstep when she was just a couple of days old with a note from one of Stefan's friends saying, "Would you raise this girl? My wife died in childbirth, and I'm not able to take care of her." So they have raised her. The other 2 children are their natural-born children. They have a congregation of about 50 to 60 people that meet in their home, and I had written Stefan to see if he could point me to a hotel we could stay in overnight. We had an 18-hour layover, and he wrote back and he said, "I don't know much about the hotels, but we want you to stay with us." So we did. We got to their home about 2 in the morning. And the next morning, we had the privilege of studying with a couple of his English Bible students. These 2 young people, very bright, fine young people that come and study the Bible with Stefan. On the way back to the airport, they took us by a beautiful park in downtown Ho Chi Minh. And this scene was taken in that park. Lovely flowers, just acres of beautiful flowers and greenery. Really a beautiful thing. Then we went to Cambodia. We spent 2 weeks in Cambodia. Cambodia has about 15.6 million people. We have a school there in Phnom Penh, at the capital city. And there are several really good works that are going on in Cambodia. We have several graduates who are working there. Probably recently you remember Dan and Robbie, who just arrived. They were there when we came. And another couple that are working there is Dennis and Sharon Welch. They're 2008 graduates of SIBI, doing a great work. Dennis teaches in our school. He has started a house church there where they live. Sharon heads a program called the Snack Program. And it was started by Bill McDonough with Partners in Progress, and she and Dennis have taken it to even a higher level. It's a great work. They feed children. They run 2 trucks 5 days a week. They serve about 12 villages, and they not only feed them, but they do hygiene training. They teach them the Bible, teach them Bible songs, And this has been going on for several years, so they're very well known in these villages. And they have a lot of other villages asking them to also come. But they they now have an evangelism team working in these villages, and the people are very receptive. They said, Dennis told me they have a 54% rate of people willing to talk to them about God. Isn't that wonderful? Really unbelievable. This is where they live. That's their laundry room upstairs. This is Thierry. She is a Cambodian young lady in her mid-20s. Dennis and Sharon met her several years ago, and she has become their adopted daughter. She lives with them and is going to college. Very bright young lady. Here she is teaching some of the neighborhood children, and she's a good teacher, and the children just love her. And this is where the house church meets in this covered porch area. And here's the church that meets in their home. The snack program that Sharon heads, my wife Sandy is there with sunglasses on. These are the trucks that they run to the villages. They run 2 trucks, serve 3 villages with each truck every day. As I mentioned, 12 total villages. Before we left, Sandy was at the dentist's office and happened to mention that we were getting ready to go to Cambodia, and asked them if they had any toothbrushes that she could take to the children in the snack program. Well, he gave her 5 dozen. And so we took those over. Here Terry is demonstrating with a large model of teeth and a big toothbrush. What they do with the toothbrush, that's something foreign to them, if you can imagine. And here are the children and also the workers in the snack program standing back behind. But I want you to notice especially this young man. He knows what Jesus is all about because they've been teaching them the gospel. Another scene of the snack program teaching the children. They have a few visitors. Those chickens look a little bit scrawny, I think. This is a class that I had the privilege to teach. There are 12 students. All of them are Khmer, Cambodians. They speak the Khmer language. Very few of them speak English, so all of my teaching was through a translator. But outstanding young people, most of them in their early 20s. And they all come from villages. Not a one of them are from the big city. And the villages have really provided almost all of our students in that school. Rich Dolan is the dean of that school, doing a wonderful job. Everywhere you go in Asia, you see idols. This is representative of some of the idols that you see in the temples around Asia. They can't hear, they can't speak, they're deaf. It's so sad to see the influence of idolatry. This young lady was one of the students that Terry was teaching in that scene we saw earlier. She's learning about Jesus. She's learning about a Savior who is living, who left an empty tomb, and who rules at the right hand of God today. She is representative of the next generation. And she's learning about our precious Lord. Praise God. Thank you.
always good to see God at work all around the world, wherever you go, and to realize that the world is not too big of a place for Him. So thank you for that, for those pictures and those stories. We're always thankful to have visitors with us, and so we want to take just a few minutes to welcome anybody visiting